Before we begin, if you're drawn to the darkest corners of real-life crime, if you crave the truth behind headlines that shook entire nations, then subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments what you think really happened here, because this story, it only gets darker. The sirens cut through the quiet Connecticut night like a blade. Red and blue lights flickered violently against the white colonial houses lining Ashford Lane. Neighbors stood barefoot on their lawns, arms wrapped around themselves against the October chill, whispering the same terrified question. What happened inside the Whitmore house? The front door was wide open. Inside, the dining room looked frozen in time, a half-finished roast on fine china, wine glasses tipped over, a chair lying on its side. The scent of garlic and rosemary hung in the air, mixing with something metallic and sharp. Blood. Detective Laura Bennett ducked under the yellow tape, a boot sticking slightly against the polished hardwood floor. 20 years in homicide, and she'd learned something about crime scenes. The quiet ones were the worst. At the head of the table sat Daniel Whitmore, or what was left of him. The 52-year-old tech executive was slumped sideways in his chair, shirt soaked crimson, eyes open as if he was still trying to understand how dinner had turned into death. A single precise stab wound to the chest. Clean. Intentional. No signs of forced entry. No ransacked drawers. No broken windows. Whoever did this had been invited inside. Upstairs, officers found his wife, Eleanor Whitmore, locked inside the master bedroom bathroom. She was shaking, mascara streaked down her pale face, her silk blouse smeared with her husband's blood. He just fell, she whispered over and over. We were arguing, and then someone grabbed him. I didn't see his face, but there was a problem. The house's security system showed no third-party entry, and neighbors reported no one leaving the property. The only people confirmed inside that night were Daniel, Eleanor, and their 26-year-old son, Marcus Whitmore. Marcus was nowhere to be found. 3 hours earlier, the Whitmore family dinner had looked picture perfect. Daniel Whitmore was a self-made millionaire, founder of a cybersecurity firm recently valued at over $400 million. Interviews painted him as brilliant, controlled, composed. The American dream in tailored suits. Eleanor was the graceful philanthropist, known for hosting charity galas and posting smiling family photos online. And Marcus? Well, Marcus was complicated. Former Ivy League student, dropped out senior year, a string of failed startups, rumors of gambling debts, and recently, according to financial records, he had asked his father for $150,000. Daniel had refused. Detective Bennett stood in the kitchen reviewing phone data pulled from Daniel's device. The final outgoing message was sent at 7:42 p.m. to Marcus. We will discuss this tonight. No more excuses. Dinner was served at 8 o'clock. At 8:37, Eleanor dialed 911. That left 35 minutes unaccounted for. Marcus's car was discovered abandoned 2 miles away near an old marina parking lot. The engine was cold. The keys were missing. Inside the glove compartment, officers found something strange. A printed document. Daniel Whitmore's updated will, signed 1 week earlier. In it, nearly everything: the house, the majority of the company's shares, the offshore accounts, was transferred not to Marcus, but to Eleanor. Marcus's inheritance had been drastically reduced, cut to a fraction of what he had expected. Motive. But Detective Bennett didn't rush to conclusions. In her experience, obvious motives were often red herrings. Except, the forensics report complicated everything. The angle of the stab wound suggested the attacker stood directly in front of Daniel, close, intimate distance. No defensive wounds on Daniel's hands. No signs of struggle. It didn't look like a chaotic fight. It looked calculated. And then came the toxicology result. Daniel had traces of a sedative in his bloodstream, administered before the stabbing. Someone had weakened him first. That meant planning. That meant patience. That meant this wasn't a spontaneous crime of passion. Meanwhile, Marcus Whitmore resurfaced. At 2:13 a.m., a state trooper spotted him walking along Route 6, hoodie pulled over his head, shoes muddy. He didn't run. He didn't resist. He looked exhausted. At the station, under fluorescent lights, Marcus stared at the table and said only one thing: I didn't kill my father. Detective Bennett watched him carefully. His eyes were red, but not from crying. Where were you after dinner? She asked. I left around 8:15. We argued. I told him I didn't need his money. I drove. I parked. I just Walked. You walked for 4 hours? Yes. Why? He swallowed hard. Because if I stayed, I would have said something I couldn't take back. Bennett leaned forward. Did you know about the will? Silence. Then a whisper. He told me right before dessert. And how did that make you feel? Marcus's jaw tightened. Like I'd already lost everything. Investigators searched Marcus's room. No blood-stained clothes. No weapon. No evidence tying him physically to the act. But in the kitchen trash bin, hidden beneath paper towels, they found something that shifted the case dramatically. An empty blister pack of prescription sedatives. Prescribed not to Marcus, but to Eleanor Whitmore. The same drug found in Daniel's system. Eleanor claimed she hadn't taken them in weeks, but pharmacy records showed a refill 3 days before the murder. And then there was the wine. Only Daniel's glass tested positive for the sedative. Not Eleanor's, not Marcus's, which meant someone had drugged him intentionally. Across the table, at dinner. Bennett's instinct screamed that this wasn't about a son snapping. This was surgical. Financial analysts uncovered something else buried in Daniel's company records, an internal audit he'd initiated quietly weeks earlier. Large transfers, unauthorized withdrawals, money disappearing, and the digital signature approving those transfers, Eleanor Whitmore's. When confronted, she broke down. I didn't steal anything, she insisted. Daniel moved money all the time. He handled everything, but the transfers totaled nearly $8 million, and the timing aligned perfectly with Daniel updating his will. As if he had discovered something. As if he had decided someone close to him couldn't be trusted. That night at dinner may not have been about Marcus at all. It may have been about betrayal between husband and wife. Then came the surveillance footage. A neighbor's security camera captured a shadowy figure moving along the side of the Whitmore house at 8:29 p.m. Not leaving, entering, through the back patio door. The timestamp was clear. At 8:31 p.m. The figure stepped inside. At 8:36 p.m. Eleanor called 911. 5 minutes. The figure wore a hooded jacket. Medium height. Built similar to Marcus. But the stride was different. Slow. More deliberate. And then the most chilling detail. The figure appeared to unlock the patio door with a key. Which meant they weren't breaking in. They belonged there. Detective Bennett gathered her team in the conference room. Photos plastered across the board. Daniel's lifeless body. The altered will. The missing money. The sedative packaging. The security still frame. 2 suspects. Both with motive. Both with access. Both lying. But something wasn't adding up. If Eleanor had planned this, why call 911 so quickly? If Marcus had done it, where was the weapon? Then forensics called with a final update. They had found partial fingerprints on the stem of Daniel's wine glass. Not Daniel's. Not Marcus's. Not Eleanor's. The prints matched someone else entirely. Someone who shouldn't have been at that dinner. Someone whose name made the entire room fall silent. Because the fingerprints belonged to a former Whitmore employee, a cybersecurity engineer Daniel had fired 6 months earlier for gross misconduct. A man who had threatened legal action. A man who had publicly accused Daniel of ruining his life. And according to cell tower data, his phone had pinged less than half a mile from the Whitmore home that night. But when they pulled up his profile photo on the screen, Detective Bennett felt a chill crawl down her spine. Because standing beside him in multiple photos, smiling, close, familiar, was Marcus Whitmore. Best friends since college. Business partners in one of Marcus's failed startups. Which meant one terrifying possibility. This wasn't a family argument that spiraled out of control. It was something far colder, far more coordinated. And when officers executed a search warrant on that former employee's apartment, they discovered something that changed everything. Hidden in a locked safe, the murder weapon, still stained, and next to it, a handwritten note, signed with a single initial. Militaires, if you think you know who N stands for, think again. Because the next chapter uncovers a betrayal no one saw coming. Subscribe now because this dinner table secret is about to explode.